Hey guys, how's it going today? Today the focus is the branches of government for this quick mini workshop here. So I want you guys to take a look at this workshop, pay attention to this. There'll be a short quiz following this workshop. It's not very long, but I want to make sure that you guys are taking your Cornell notes based off of this as well. The objective today, you guys will run a successful executive branch election in order to keep the employment and working for your candidate. So we're working on an election right now. In this, you guys are going to be able to analyze the importance of the executive branch, describe the functions of the executive branch, and compare the executive branch to our two other branches. First and foremost, we talk about the Constitution. And when we talk about the Constitution, we have to talk about Articles 1, 2, and 3. Articles 1, 2, and 3 set forth exactly what it is that we're going to be taking a look at in this entire project. So Article 1 sets up our legislative branch, Article 2 lays out the guidelines for our executive branch, and Article 3 gives forth the definition of what our judicial branch will be. Each branch has its unique, challenging responsibilities, a series of checks and balances on the other, and its own specific powers. When we take a look at these, the executive branch is made up of the president, the vice president, and the cabinet, also known as the bureaucracy, responsible in brief for enforcing the laws and managing the military of the United States. The legislative branch, on the other hand, is made up of the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. It is responsible in brief, for creating laws and managing the budget of the United States. Last but not least, the judicial branch is made up of the legal system of the United States, but the flagship of it, the thing that we always pay attention to, is the Supreme Court. The judicial branch works as the interpreter of the Constitution. To kind of show off each branch here, we have the executive branch, which is popularized by the White House. That is the center of the executive branch in the United States. Hasn't always been that way, hasn't always been there, but it is now. When we talk about the legislative branch, we're talking about Capitol Hill, we're talking about the Congress, and the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, is kind of their headquarters. Now, looking at this graphic here, we're going to take a look at separations of power. So Articles 1, 2, and 3 explain what each group can do. The graphic to the left helps to explain the roles and functions of each government group. It also shows us the checks and balances of each group. So Congress can impeach judges, create lower federal courts, and fix their jurisdictions, meaning they can set the boundaries of who they represent. They set the size of the Supreme Court and determine judicial Senate salaries. The Senate confirms judges, so that's kind of the Senate's power over the court. Now, in exchange, the courts have the opportunity to interpret congressional statutes and declare acts of Congress unconstitutional. Pretty big card there. Hey, Congress, what you're doing goes against the document that created you. That's huge, right? Now, what's our first check and balance there? Now, the court is kind of really unique in the sense that it doesn't have a lot, but it does get to interpret the acts. All right. So when we take a look at the court and the executive branch, what we see is that the courts can declare presidential actions unconstitutional and can determine whether the executive branch is properly administering the laws passed by Congress. In exchange, the president gets to pick the federal judges and may enforce those court orders. And the best example of the may enforce court orders is to take a look at the Indian Removal Act. And when Congress passed that law, and what came out of that was this idea that all of a sudden we have the opportunity for President Jackson and his administration to follow the law of Congress. Well, Jackson, the American lion, the American king, decided, you know what, Supreme Court, you've made your decision, but I control the enforcement. Now let's see you enforce this decision for me to stop trying to remove these Native Americans from their land. So the president gets to nominate that and may enforce those court orders. Now, that's kind of really a big part there. Again, judges, the judicial branch gets to say, Congress or president, you're not following the document that created you. All right, so we definitely kind of see that. Now, some of the most action happens between the president and Congress. So Congress passes laws and creates executive agencies and the programs they administer. And it can override presidential vetoes by a 2/3 vote of both chambers and can impeach the president. The Senate ratifies all treaties and confirms presidential appointments to the executive branch and the courts. Meanwhile, the president, who does not actually get to write any laws, he can only recommend these laws, vetoes any bills passed by Congress that he doesn't like, and he is in charge of implementing those laws and enforcing those laws. So we see a definite kind of shift in this. And when we talk about this in the last few years, we've seen a lot with the Obama administration and the current, Congress that's there, as how we do everything and how we control everything. So it's an important step for us to take to understand how everything shapes up and how everything comes to be. And we see these checks and balances in there, and this is a great example of those checks and balances. The separation of powers, the reason for this is the founding fathers did not want another king. They made the Articles of Confederation weak with the federal government because they were afraid of a king. They found out that doesn't work. They decided they had to do something. The legislative branch makes the laws, the executive branch carries out the laws, and the judicial branch interprets the laws. We put these checks and balances in place. We put all of those things from the previous side in place to make sure that we didn't have another tyrannical king. We wanted to be sure that that did not happen again, and that's why we did this. That's the importance of the separation of powers and the introduction to the three branches of the United States government. As always, these slides, the template, as you guys probably know by now, was created by a company called Slides Carnival. They're free to use. I just have to give them credit, and this is where their credit is. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.